It's 2 a.m. A man lies in bed staring at the ceiling. His body is exhausted, but his mind, it won't stop. What if I lose my job tomorrow? What if something happens to my family? What if I fail again? The room is silent, but inside his head it feels like a storm is raging. And here's the shocking part. Nothing is happening. The house is safe, his loved ones are asleep, but his mind is living in a future that doesn't even exist. Sound familiar? Because deep down, we've all been that man at 2 a.m., trapped by worry. Now let me ask you a question. When was the last time you felt completely free from worry, not pretending, not putting on a smile, but truly light, present, and alive? If your answer is I don't remember, then stay with me, because what I'm about to share could change the way you see happiness forever. Most of us wait for life to be perfect before we give ourselves permission to feel joy. We say, I'll be happy when my career takes off, when I find the right partner, when all my problems disappear. But here's the truth that Buddhism has whispered for centuries. Peace isn't waiting for you in some distant future. Peace is right here, hidden in this very moment. The only reason we don't feel it is because we're too busy chasing control, replaying mistakes, or fearing what might come next. And yet, the present moment, the one you're in right now, is the only safe place you will ever have. I used to believe happiness was something I had to earn. I worked harder, tried to fix everything, stayed awake at night worrying about things I couldn't control. But no matter how much I achieved, peace kept slipping away. It wasn't until I slowed down and returned to the present moment, something as simple as listening to my breath, that I realized I wasn't missing happiness. I was overlooking it. So, here's the paradox. The more you chase happiness, the further it runs. But the moment you stop chasing, it shows up quietly, gently, right here. And if that feels impossible, don't worry, because in the next part, we're going to walk through powerful Buddhist teachings that will show you exactly how to stop worrying and start living with real freedom. Before we dive deeper, if this message is already touching your heart, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who may need this reminder today, and subscribe to Buddha Wisdom. That small act could be the ripple that brings peace to someone else's life. And that's the most beautiful way we can keep spreading the light together. 1. Not every thought is worth believing. Have you ever noticed how your mind never seems to stop talking? It whispers, it shouts, it repeats the same things over and over. One moment it's planning tomorrow. The next moment it's replaying yesterday. And in between it throws in worries that may never happen. This endless chatter, it feels real, doesn't it? I remember a time when I couldn't escape it. Every thought that came to me felt like truth. If you don't get this done, you'll fail. They probably don't like you. What if things go wrong tomorrow? And the more I listened, the heavier life felt. But here's the shift. Buddhism teaches something so simple, yet life-changing. Not every thought is worth believing. Just because your mind creates a story doesn't mean you have to live inside it. The Buddha compared thoughts to passing clouds. They drift across the sky, but the sky itself, clear, vast, unshaken, remains untouched. Your true mind is that sky. The thoughts are only clouds. When I first heard this, it felt impossible. How could I not believe what my own mind was saying? But then I started practicing. The next time a thought said, "You're not good enough," I paused. I watched it, like a cloud floating by. And I asked myself, is this real or just a passing thought? Slowly, something amazing happened. I felt space. I wasn't trapped inside the noise anymore. I could breathe, and the worries that once ruled me started losing their power. The Buddha's wisdom is not about silencing thoughts completely. It's about changing your relationship with them. Instead of being the prisoner of every anxious idea, you become the observer. You sit back, you watch, and in that watching, you discover freedom. Think about it. How many times has your mind told you a story that never came true? How many sleepless nights have you wasted believing a thought that turned out to be nothing? When we take our thoughts too seriously, we suffer twice. First, because life itself is hard enough. Second, because our mind makes it harder with constant fear, judgment, and doubt. But when we learn to see thoughts as they are temporary, fleeting, not who we truly are, we begin to step into peace. Buddhism reminds us, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. But here's the hidden part. Not every thought deserves your energy. Imagine living like this. Instead of drowning in your thoughts, you sit on the shore, watching the waves come and go. The waves are restless, but you remain still. That's the power of not believing every thought. It doesn't mean you stop thinking. It means you stop letting thoughts control you. And when you live this way, something shifts deep inside. You no longer fear the noise of the mind. You know it's just weather passing through. The storm comes, but the sky remains clear. So the next time your mind fills with worries, try this. Take one slow breath. Picture the thought as a cloud, and simply let it drift by. Without chasing it, without fighting it, you'll notice something beautiful. Beneath all the thoughts, there is a stillness, a space, a freedom. That stillness that is your true self, not the noise, not the fear, but the clear, open sky that holds it all. And when you live from that place, life feels lighter. The mind keeps talking, but you no longer believe every word. You're free. 2. Impermanence. Fear never lasts. There was a time in my life when fear felt permanent. It wrapped around me like a heavy blanket I couldn't take off. No matter what I did, the worry sat in my chest, whispering, "This will never end." Maybe you felt the same. That kind of fear that wakes you up in the middle of the night, that tightness in your stomach before a big decision, the voice in your head saying, "What if it all goes wrong?" It's easy to believe that fear is forever. That anxiety is who we are. But Buddhism offers a gentle, liberating truth. Nothing lasts. Every feeling, no matter how intense, is impermanent. The Buddha taught that everything in this world, joy, pain, success, loss, all of it changes. Even fear. Think of a storm. When the thunder roars, it feels endless. But no storm has ever lasted forever. The clouds always move. The rain always stops. And the sun, patiently waiting, always returns. Fear works the same way. I remember one night, years ago, when I felt crushed under anxiety. My mind kept racing, imagining everything that could go wrong. I thought, this feeling will break me. I can't escape it. But the next morning, the fear was lighter. It hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted. And that's when I realized fear is like weather. It comes, it stays for a while, and then it goes. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. When you deeply see impermanence, fear loses its grip. Because you know, this moment, no matter how painful, will pass. The storm is loud now, but silence is on its way. Think about your own life. Can you remember a time when you thought you'd never heal? Maybe from a heartbreak, a failure, or deep worry. And yet, here you are. The pain that once felt endless has softened. You survived every storm you thought would destroy you. That's the gift of impermanence. It reminds us that our suffering is not a life sentence. It's a passing visitor. When fear comes, instead of clinging to it, you can whisper to yourself, "This too will pass." Those words are powerful. They shift the weight off your chest. They give you space to breathe. Because you no longer see fear as a prison, but as a temporary guest. Buddhism doesn't ask us to fight fear or pretend it doesn't exist. It asks us to see fear clearly, to recognize it as impermanent, changing, fragile. And in that recognition, we become free. Here's a simple practice. The next time fear shows up, pause. Close your eyes. Imagine it as a dark cloud floating overhead. Watch it move, slowly, across the sky of your mind. And remind yourself, this cloud cannot stay forever. The more you practice, the lighter fear becomes. It no longer feels permanent. It no longer defines you. And something beautiful happens. Instead of running from fear, you start to walk with it. You understand it. And eventually, you let it go. So, when life feels overwhelming, remember the law of impermanence. No matter how heavy the storm seems today, the sun is still there behind the clouds. It's only waiting for its turn to shine again. And when you hold this truth in your heart, fear no longer feels endless. You know with absolute certainty it will pass. Just like every storm before it. Just like every storm yet to come. 3. Learning to accept in order to breathe. There's a man I once knew named Daniel. Daniel was a fighter, not in the boxing ring, but in life. Every day felt like a battle against things he couldn't control. When he lost his job, he fought the reality of it. When his health declined, he fought against his own body. And when people disappointed him, he fought them in his mind, replaying every word, every wound. But here's the thing. The more he fought, the more exhausted he became. His chest always felt heavy, his sleep restless, his heart weary. He was breathing, but never really breathing. Have you ever felt that way? Like you're carrying an invisible weight that never leaves your shoulders? That's what resistance does. Buddhism teaches us something profound. Acceptance is not giving up. It's not saying, "I'm weak, I surrender." It's saying, "I will stop resisting what already island." When the Buddha spoke about suffering, he said much of it comes from craving and aversion, from wanting life to be different than it is right now, from pushing away what's already here. And that's the trap Daniel was caught in. He believed if he resisted hard enough, reality would change. But reality doesn't bend to our will. What changes is our relationship with it. One night, after months of fighting, Daniel sat down on his porch. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he whispered, "Okay, this is where I am." That moment of acceptance cracked something open inside him. It didn't fix his problems overnight, but it gave him space. Space to breathe. Space to rest. Acceptance is like unclenching a fist you didn't realize was tight. It's the deep sigh you let out after holding your breath too long. It doesn't mean you like what's happening. It doesn't mean you stop working to improve your life. It simply means you stop wasting energy fighting the present moment. Think about water. When a river meets a rock, it doesn't scream, "Why are you here?" It flows around it. That's the power of acceptance. It makes us fluid, not rigid. The Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. And that peace begins the moment you stop resisting reality. Daniel learned this slowly. When fear rose in his chest, instead of pushing it away, he said, "I see you." When sadness visited, instead of pretending it wasn't there, he allowed it to sit beside him. And in that gentle allowing, his suffering softened. This is the paradox. When we resist, pain grows sharper. When we accept, pain loses its sting. I want you to try something simple. The next time life feels unbearable, pause. Place your hand on your heart. Take one deep breath. And say quietly, "This too is part of my path." That single act shifts everything. It doesn't erase the hardship, but it anchors you in the present. It allows healing to begin. Acceptance isn't the end of effort. It's the beginning of clarity. From acceptance, you can see the situation clearly, without the fog of anger or denial. And from that clarity, wise action naturally arises. That's how Daniel found his way back. Not by controlling life, but by flowing with it. By realizing that peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. Peace comes when we stop fighting the moment we're in. And maybe, just maybe, that's what you need too. Not to win every battle, but to put the sword down for a while, to let yourself breathe again. Because acceptance is not the end of the journey. It's the doorway to peace. 4. Letting go of control. The burden that was never ours. There's a woman named Sarah. She worked hard, planned every detail of her life, and believed that if she could just control everything, she'd finally feel safe. She mapped out her career, her family, even her health routines down to the smallest step. But the more she tried to hold everything in her hands, the more life seemed to slip through her fingers. One day her company downsized, and she lost her job. Her plans shattered overnight. And she sat there, staring at her carefully written goals, realizing life didn't ask for her permission to change. Maybe you've lived this too. That desperate grip on how things should be. That tight chest when plans fall apart. That voice whispering, "If I don't control it, everything will collapse." But here's the truth Buddhism reminds us of. Control is an illusion. The Buddha taught that we can act with wisdom and intention, but we cannot cling to outcomes. Because outcomes are shaped by countless causes and conditions beyond our reach. Think about planting a seed. You can water it, give it sunlight, nurture the soil, but you cannot command the seed to sprout on your timetable. You cannot order the rain to fall or the wind to stay calm. Your role is to care for the seed, not to control the harvest. Sarah's struggle was the same. She wanted life to obey her plans. But life has its own rhythm, its own seasons. The more she clung, the heavier her burden became. Until one day, she heard a teaching of the Buddha that changed her. Act with wisdom, but let go of attachment to results. She realized she had been carrying a weight that was never hers to hold. The weight of outcomes. The weight of controlling the uncontrollable. That night she wrote in her journal, "I will give my best each day, but I release the need to control tomorrow." It wasn't easy at first. Her old habits whispered, "What if it goes wrong? What if you fail?" But slowly, she began to breathe again. When she applied for new jobs, she focused only on doing her best in the interview, not obsessing over the result. When she cared for her health, she exercised and ate well, without demanding that her body look a certain way by a certain date. And when she showed up for her family, she did so with love, without expecting everyone to meet her standards. Something shifted. Her shoulders felt lighter, her mind calmer, because she wasn't dragging around the impossible weight of control anymore. That's the paradox. When you let go of control, you don't become powerless. You actually discover real strength. Because your energy goes where it matters, into wise action, instead of being wasted on fear of results. Buddhism doesn't tell us to sit back and do nothing. It tells us to engage fully in life, but to release the chains of attachment, to act with presence, to love with openness, and then to trust the unfolding of things we cannot command. Sarah learned that freedom isn't about having control. It's about letting go of the illusion that you ever did. And maybe that's the invitation for you too. To stop exhausting yourself trying to carry what was never yours. To put down the burden of outcomes. And to finally breathe into the present moment. Because peace doesn't come when you control everything. Peace comes when you stop trying to. 5. Speak compassionately to yourself. Imagine this for a moment. You wake up in the morning, and before you even get out of bed, there's already a voice in your head. It tells you, you're not doing enough, you're behind, you should have done better yesterday. Does that sound familiar? For many of us, that inner voice feels like a strict teacher, always pointing out flaws, always pushing us harder. And while it might think it's protecting us, in truth, it often leaves us exhausted, anxious, and never fully at peace. This voice is the inner critic. And whether we admit it or not, it follows us everywhere. At work, at home, even in moments when we should feel joy, it whispers, "This won't last. Don't relax yet." Now here's the conflict. That inner critic comes from a part of us that actually wants safety. It's trying to shield us from failure, rejection, or pain. But in doing so, it builds walls around our heart, walls so tight that we can hardly breathe. We end up carrying a burden we were never meant to carry alone. The Buddha taught that all suffering begins in the mind. And one of the deepest roots of suffering is how we relate to ourselves. If we respond to our own fears with harshness, we only deepen the wound. But if we meet those same fears with compassion, something powerful shifts. Think of a child who's crying in the middle of the night. Would you shout at them to get over it? Of course not. You would hold them. You would whisper, "It's okay. You're safe. I'm here with you." So why don't we speak to ourselves in the same way? I remember a time in my own life when I was overwhelmed. Every day felt like a race I could never win. I blamed myself for not being stronger, not being faster, not being enough. And the more I pushed, the heavier everything became. One day during meditation, a simple thought came to me. What if I spoke to myself the way I would speak to someone I love? It was so obvious, yet I had never practiced it. So I tried. When the voice in my head said, "You're failing," I answered softly, "I know you're scared, but it's okay. I'm learning." When it said, "You'll never catch up," I replied, "One step at a time is enough. I don't need to rush." And slowly, something shifted. The weight didn't disappear overnight, but it became lighter. Because instead of fighting with myself, I was finally on my own side. This is what the Buddha pointed to when he spoke of metta, loving kindness. It isn't just about how we treat others. It starts inside. It's about cultivating a gentle, steady friendship with ourselves. So the next time that critical voice shows up, try this practice. Pause. Take a deep breath. And instead of reacting with judgment, answer with compassion. Say to yourself, "I hear you. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I choose kindness now." At first, it may feel strange. It may even feel fake. But just as a seed needs water and sunlight, compassion needs practice to grow. Every kind word you give yourself is like a drop of healing. Over time, that seed blossoms into strength, resilience, and peace. Remember, strength doesn't come from being harsh with ourselves. True strength comes from being gentle in the face of struggle. Because when we nurture ourselves, we are no longer fighting an inner battle. We are walking hand in hand with our own heart. So let me ask you this. What would change in your life if, starting today, you spoke to yourself with kindness instead of criticism? What new possibilities would open if you became your own greatest ally instead of your harshest judge? The Buddha's wisdom reminds us, peace begins within. And it begins the moment we choose compassion not just for the world, but for ourselves. 6. Joy is a practice, not a reward. There's a common story I hear again and again. People say, I'll finally be happy when I get the promotion. Or, I'll relax once I have enough money saved. Or even, I'll feel joy once my life is completely in order. And I get it. It feels safe to put happiness on hold until things look perfect. But here's the problem: perfection never arrives. There's always something else to fix, something else to chase, something else standing in the way. That's the trap. And it leaves us stuck, living in a constant waiting room for joy. We keep postponing happiness as if it's a reward at the finish line, instead of something we can touch right here, right now. I want you to meet Sarah. She's hardworking, caring, always doing her best. But she has this belief: I can't be happy until everything is stable. Until my career, my family, and my health are exactly as they should be. And because of that belief, even on her best days, she never feels free. She's always one step away from peace. Her struggle is something the Buddha spoke of long ago. He taught that craving and clinging create suffering. And one of the biggest forms of clinging is the idea that joy exists only in the future, only after conditions are good enough. But true joy isn't a reward waiting at the end of the road. It's the way we walk the road itself. Think about it. The sunlight warming your face. The sound of leaves moving in the wind. The rise and fall of your breath, steady, constant, alive. None of these depend on perfection. They are gifts already here, right now, if we allow ourselves to notice. One day, Sarah decided to try something new. Instead of waiting for her life to be flawless, she began a small daily practice. Every morning, before reaching for her phone, she named one thing she was grateful for. Some days it was as simple as, I'm grateful for the warm coffee in my hands. Other days, I'm grateful I made it through yesterday, even if it was tough. At first, it felt small, almost insignificant, but slowly, those moments built a new habit. Her happiness no longer depended on a perfect future. It grew from the present, from the everyday miracles she used to overlook. The Buddha once said, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. This isn't just a meditation instruction. It's a reminder that joy is not delayed, it's discovered. It's practiced. And that's the key. Joy is not something you stumble upon when you've checked every box. It's something you cultivate, like a garden. Each breath of gratitude, each moment of presence is a seed. And those seeds grow into a life that feels full, even when circumstances are not perfect. So, let me ask you, what are you postponing your happiness for? What story have you been telling yourself that keeps joy just out of reach? And most importantly, what would change if starting today, you chose to treat joy as a practice, not a reward? You don't need to wait for the perfect job, the perfect partner, or the perfect health to smile. You only need to pause, breathe, and open your heart to what is already here. Joy is not later. It's now. It's in the simplest things: the breath you just took, the warmth in your chest, the fact that you are alive in this very moment. And when we live this way, life itself becomes lighter. Challenges still come, of course, but instead of stealing our happiness, they become just another part of the journey. Because we no longer wait for happiness to arrive, we practice it every single day. 7. The present moment, the only true refuge. Have you ever noticed how much of your energy is spent outside of this very moment? We replay the past again and again, wishing we had done things differently. Or we project into the future, worrying about problems that might never even come. And while our minds wander back and forth, something precious is slipping through our fingers. The present moment, the only place where life actually happens. Let me share with you the story of Daniel. He was a man who carried both regret and fear. Regret from a broken relationship he thought he had ruined forever. Fear of a future where he might be alone. Every day, these two forces pulled at him like tides, dragging him away from peace. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." But for Daniel, this was easier said than done. His thoughts were like restless birds, darting everywhere except here. And maybe you know this feeling too. When your mind is crowded with what was and what might be, the weight becomes unbearable. One evening, Daniel decided to try something simple. He sat quietly, placed his hand on his chest, and focused only on his breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. At first, his thoughts kept returning memories, worries, doubts. But every time, he gently guided himself back to the rise and fall of his breath. And something shifted. For the first time in months, he felt a tiny crack of space inside him. Not freedom from problems, but freedom from being consumed by them. The past was no longer choking him. The future was no longer haunting him. All that remained was the rhythm of his breath. And in that rhythm, he found a safe refuge. This is the power of the present moment. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't guarantee the future. But it gives us a sanctuary where peace can grow, even in the middle of chaos. Think about it like this. When you drink a cup of tea but your mind is racing, you miss the taste, the warmth, the comfort. But when you pause, when you let yourself really be there, the same cup of tea becomes an anchor. A reminder that peace is possible here and now. The Buddha compared the present moment to an island, a safe place to return to whenever the storms of life grow too strong. And the doorway to this island is simple: your breath, your steps, the sounds around you. These are not small things. They are lifelines, pulling you back to where life is actually unfolding. Daniel kept practicing. Every day, a few minutes of mindful breathing. Every walk, he paid attention to his footsteps. Every meal, he slowed down enough to taste and to notice. And over time, his regrets lost their grip. His fears softened. He discovered that the present moment was not empty. It was alive, vibrant, and healing. And here's the truth. You don't have to wait for a perfect life to feel safe. The safe refuge you're searching for is already here, in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat. So let me ask you, what would change if you treated the present not as a passing second, but as a home? What if, instead of chasing peace in the past or the future, you trusted that peace is only ever available right now? Close your eyes for a moment. Listen to your breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. This is it. This is where your life island. This is where your healing begins. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. The present, this very moment, is the only safe refuge you'll ever need. 8. Gratitude, the bridge to peace. Have you ever noticed how easy it is for our minds to get stuck on what's missing? The job we don't have yet. The money we wish we had. The relationship that feels incomplete. It's almost as if the human mind is designed to chase after what's absent instead of cherishing what's already here. And that constant chase, it drains us. It makes us restless. It feeds anxiety and fear. But there's a hidden key, a practice so simple yet so powerful that it can turn this cycle upside down. That key is gratitude. Now, I know gratitude might sound like just another nice idea, something people write in inspirational quotes or put on greeting cards. But in Buddhism, gratitude is not just a polite feeling, it's a bridge. A bridge that takes us from restlessness to peace, from fear to trust, from scarcity to abundance. Let me share a story. A few years ago, I met a man named David. On the outside, he seemed to have everything: steady job, good family, a decent home. But inside, he was restless. He was always worrying about the future. What if I lose my job? What if something happens to my kids? What if I never achieve enough? His mind was a storm of what ifs. And this storm was stealing his sleep, his smile, his peace. One evening, while talking to a Buddhist teacher, David was given a simple practice. Every night before you sleep, the teacher said, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Not big achievements, not dramatic miracles, just 3 simple things from your day. At first, David thought it was silly. How could something so small fix the chaos inside him? But he tried. One night he wrote, I'm grateful for the warm cup of tea I had this morning. Another night, I'm grateful my daughter laughed at dinner. Another time, I'm grateful I made it home safely. Tiny things, almost ordinary. But slowly, something began to shift. Instead of ending the day worrying about what he didn't have, he began closing his eyes with a soft smile, remembering what was already there. Instead of obsessing over tomorrow's storms, he started noticing today's sunlight. And over time, the storm inside him began to quiet. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because his heart found a bridge of gratitude. The Buddha once taught that when we practice appreciation, our mind becomes light and our heart becomes spacious. Why? Because gratitude loosens the tight grip of fear. It reminds us, life is not only about the things we are chasing. Life is also about the blessings already flowing quietly around us. Think about it. When was the last time you stopped to appreciate your breath, the fact that you're alive, right now, able to listen, to learn, to grow? When was the last time you noticed the friend who texted you just to check in, or the stranger who held the door for you, or the simple gift of having food on your table? These are not small things. They are reminders that even in the middle of our struggles, goodness is still present. And when we anchor ourselves in that goodness, fear and worry lose their power. Gratitude is not about denying pain. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about seeing clearly. Yes, there are challenges, but there is also beauty. Yes, there are storms, but there are also shelters. Yes, there is loss, but there is also love. And when we hold both truths, we find balance. So here's something you can try tonight. Before you sleep, pause for a moment. Place your hand on your heart and whisper 3 things you're grateful for today. They don't have to be big. They just have to be real. Do this for a week. You may notice that your mind feels a little softer, your heart a little lighter. And if you keep going, you may find that gratitude becomes more than a practice. It becomes your bridge. a bridge that carries you back again and again to peace. Because peace is not found in having more. It's found in seeing more clearly. And gratitude is the lens that makes that possible. Summarize the key points and lessons learned. So, after walking through all these reflections, let's take a deep breath together. Think back for a moment to where we started restless, worried, pulled into the future, resisting the present. That's where anxiety begins. It grows from running after what hasn't arrived yet and fighting against what's already here. But as we've seen, our thoughts are not who we are. They're like passing guests, sometimes noisy, sometimes quiet, but never permanent. And when we stop identifying with every passing thought or emotion, a new kind of freedom opens. We learn that acceptance is not weakness. Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It means choosing peace instead of endless struggle. And when we speak to ourselves with compassion, simple words of kindness, we break the old cycle of self-criticism that has chained us for too long. The Buddha reminded us that everything is impermanent. The pain, the joy, the gain, the loss, none of it stays forever. And instead of fearing that truth, we can let it teach us how precious every moment really is. Gratitude, too, becomes a bridge. It shifts our focus from the storms of not enough to the sunlight of already here. When we practice gratitude, even in small ways, the heart learns to rest. And perhaps the most beautiful discovery, happiness is not a faraway destination. It's not waiting for us at the end of some perfect life. It is right here, in each mindful breath, in each step taken with awareness, in each moment we choose presence over distraction. So the lesson is clear. True happiness doesn't come from fixing everything outside of us. It comes from the way we choose to live awake, grateful, and anchored in the now. Maybe as you're listening, someone comes to your mind. A loved one who's been struggling with worry. A friend who's always caught in what-ifs. If that person appeared in your thoughts, perhaps this video is not only for you, but also for them. Because the wisdom we share multiplies when it's passed on. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these reflections touched your heart the most today? Was it the reminder about impermanence? The gentle practice of self-compassion? Or maybe the power of gratitude? Your comment might be the exact message another person needs to read. If this video brought you even a moment of peace, consider liking it and sharing it with someone who may need it too. And if you'd like to continue receiving daily wisdom from the Buddha's teachings, you can join our community by subscribing. No pressure, just a warm invitation to walk this path of mindfulness together. Before we close, let me say this. Thank you. Truly, thank you for staying with me until the very end. Your presence here is not just support for this channel. It's a sign that your heart is seeking a deeper peace. And that is something worth honoring. May you carry today's reflections with you like a gentle lantern, lighting the path through whatever challenges you face. May your days be filled with awareness, your nights with rest, and your heart with gratitude. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. It continues in every breath, every step, every choice you make. Until we meet again in the next video, be well, stay mindful, and may peace always find you.